there are lots of, like, for example, Lefebvre is very, very interesting. I mean, that's where the whole idea of production of space, right? That space is produced, it's not given, right? And that's where this idea that, I'll just give you a small example, and maybe we can come back to it later again. We curated this exhibition called Venice Space, okay, at the Jawahar Kala Kendra. And that's when it was an architecture exhibition. We were invited. There was, this very interesting person, Pooja Sood, who was the director. She's kind of working with, she's the director of Khoj now, but at that time she was running the Jawahar Kala Kendra for a couple of years. And she invited us for this exhibition. She said it should be an architecture exhibition. And we said, I mean, again, from this idea of rethinking frameworks, we said you cannot have an architecture exhibition which is bringing projects, because that's how conventional architecture exhibitions are. You have models, you have drawings, and you kind of bring projects to the table to discuss and look at case studies and precedents, right? Instead, we asked the question, we said, the title was When is Space, which is kind of a short for When is Space Produced, And then we invited not only architects, but we invited people who we call spatial practitioners. These were artists, these were architects, these were, mathematicians and game designers. They were anthropologists, all of those who were implicated in the production of space, or in some ways nudging the production of space, And then there's like all kinds of, and of course, I mean, we can come back to the discussion. There was a series of provocations that we gave each of them of, really kind of thinking of what does it mean. It was located in Charles Correa's building. So there were two kinds of provocations. One came also from Jaipur, the city of Jaipur itself. The first time that a city like that was getting formed, the first sort of a gridded city. Before this in North India, there was no city like that. There was Mohenjo-daro, but it wasn't discovered yet. But it was Savai Jai Singh sets up the city, and it is he realizes that the kind of agricultural taxes are not coming anymore from agrarian land. So he sets up this new city of traders, new people coming in, completely different building type, which is kind of morphing public and private, and creating these new kinds of streets or new public life that is emerging. So there's certain sort of an idea of sort of principles of thinking of space coming from there. Correa himself also, his own principles of space, which in many ways completely overturn a lot of givens, So for example, when he is given a mall to do, he will completely rethink it. No, it's not the glass mall anymore, but it's a completely new type. And so even the house, for example, is a completely new house. He says as much space as that you need inside, you need that much space outside. So he's also completely kind of rethinking space, So these two became the kind of hinge points, and they became the kind of, so what we like the central space of the exhibition. Instead of bringing models and drawings from Korea, we commissioned a game designer, a product designer, to make spatial tools, spatial games. Spatial games. So learning from Korea's design principles, they made spatial games. And all kinds of people were involved in that. It was a central kind of double-eyed space in Jawahar Kala Kendra. There were kids who were playing with the games, and But through the process of playing games, we were thinking of the design principles. And at the same time, the Jaipur room was also asking this question that before cartography comes in, how are these buildings made? All these sophisticated buildings that you have in Jaipur, if you look at it, they didn't come from cartographic drawings. Okay. So we actually went to the city museum and we saw the kinds of drawings that were there to build these buildings. And this is like post that 1890, you have Swinton Jacob, who is also coming from in Jaipur. He's there for like 30 years after that, making the Jaipur portfolio. And this is when he's actually making cartographic drawings of all the buildings and elements in this place. before this, nobody has made cartographic drawings, but you have the most sophisticated buildings. Okay. Where is this thinking coming from? Where is this imagination coming from? And that's where we discovered, actually super interesting, in the Jaipur. There's a very, very interesting archive in the palace, in the city palace. They had these drawings, and there was one it was called the Manoharpur Palace, and that drawing was actually it was their working drawing. It was a kind of almost like a miniature painting, where the plan, the section, and elevation were all collapsed. There were small notations, some of them were poems, some of them were like, instructions to others. So much itna mal, it's so much mal, then so much kind of money will go into kind of the transportation, right? And so these are kind of conversations, little notations to other people. Now you realize then that there is no single architect, that there are multiple architects. I would get this as somebody who's making this window. I would work with the proportioning systems that are there, kind of inherent in my own body. Yeah. And I would make this. So I am a kind of part designer. There's another part designer. There's another. So you have multiple people who are designers. It's only when Stephen Jacobs makes this cartographic drawing, that's when it becomes the way of thinking. And now all of us, you go to, you do measure drawings, that has become the way of thinking. Right? We all make drawings like Swinton Jacob made them, but they don't become our ways of thinking. Right? And that also congealed the idea of the single architect, right? Like you produced one drawing was produced by that one person who became the hero architect, who would then give instructions. So then the rest of the people who are producing the building are labor. Right?
It's such a nightmare when these instructions are not followed, I must say.
Yeah, exactly. But that exactly, right? It's a nightmare when the instructions are not followed, because you've set up a whole structure where somebody is subordinated. Why are they interested in what you're telling them to do? Right? So it overturns. And that's again a kind of, it was super interesting to understand that what we have taken as given has come from completely somewhere else.